Today's video is all about jobs in Vancouver. What are the dominant industries? What are the fastest growing industries? If you're moving to Vancouver, where are you most likely to find the best employment opportunities? These are questions we're going to answer in today's video. Let's get into it right now. My name is Sebastian Albrecht with the Living in Vancouver, BC team. Welcome back to the channel. And if you're new here, this channel is all about living in and moving to Vancouver. I put out videos just like this one every single week. This week, we're talking about job opportunities and the economy of Vancouver. If you've been paying attention to stereotypes, well, Vancouver's stereotype, the reason that people move here is the lifestyle, the natural beauty. The reality is there's a lot more opportunity to living in Vancouver than just that lifestyle. Vancouver is one of the most diverse economies in the entire country. We've very successfully transitioned in the last 30, 40 years from a highly resource-based economy on forestry and mining specifically to a much more diverse, knowledge-based economy. In recent years, Vancouver has been the strongest growing economy in the entire country. And we are also seeing some of the strongest job growth in the entire country. So there is immense opportunity, and you're gonna want to watch this entire video to truly understand what your opportunity, what your economic opportunity, and what's possible in your field and where you want to go in Vancouver. So stay tuned. Technology is one of the biggest industries in Vancouver. There's close to 200,000 people employed in technology, according to the Vancouver Economic Commission. And these companies are attracted to Vancouver because of its high quality education system and its reputation for a very high standard of living. And we're seeing enormous international firms move to Vancouver, have a large presence, including Amazon, Microsoft, Nintendo, IBM, Sage, Best Buy, Intel, Boeing, MasterCard, NetApp, Broadcom, SAP, Kodak, Ericsson, Motorola. All of these companies have really significant local presences. It's really known for a cluster of video game developers as well, the largest of which is Electronic Arts. They're located in Burnaby. There's about more than 2,000 people employed in Vancouver by Electronic Arts. We also have an incredibly active startup scene, and some of the most commonly known big companies that have had enormous success. There's plenty of fish, Hootsuite, and Slack, but there's a whole slew of companies not quite known yet, but an incredible startup scene in technology in Vancouver as well. We are known as a fuel cell technology center. It accounts for roughly 70% of the Canadian industry in the fuel cell industry. And the National Research Council Institute for Fuel Cell Innovation is here locally as well. So a lot going on there. And then in terms of VFX and animation, it's ranked as the #1 hub in the entire world. So Pixar, as an example, is located in Vancouver as well. So if you're in animation, there's a lot going on there. Suffice it to say that with nearly 200,000 people involved in technology in Vancouver, just about everyone knows somebody in the field, and this is one of the major growth drivers of the economy in Metro Vancouver. One of the other major industries is, of course, film and television. Vancouver is ranked as the #3 film and television hub in the entire world. So we are nicknamed Hollywood North, of course, and there's a lot of reasons that Hollywood productions like to come to Vancouver. One of the reasons is, of course, Canadian dollars. There's tax incentives from the province of British Columbia. There's a huge workforce, 24,000 people that are involved, that are highly skilled. And so TV productions and film productions have this track record of success coming here. They know that they're going to be able to hire good people. So, like begets like, that success begets success. More and more television and film productions are coming here. In fact, annually, there's 65 movies and 55 television series filmed in Metro Vancouver. And the other big advantage is that Vancouver can look like many other places. So it can look like Tokyo or New York City or Idaho. There's areas all throughout Metro Vancouver that can kind of double as something else. And that's one of the things that people struggle with a little bit, is that Vancouver rarely plays itself in a movie or a TV show. It's always playing somebody else. It's always impersonating somebody else. And your experience of living in Vancouver is that you're probably going to stumble on production sets sets, on movie productions, on TV series all around the city. You never know what's going on. You never know when you might run into an actor at a restaurant or walking down the street. And I think another thing that Hollywood kind of likes about Vancouver is that we kind of let them do their own thing. You rarely see somebody very famous getting mobbed or even asked for a signature. You know, people in Canada more or less kind of let famous people have their own lives, and they're just people like you and I. We don't treat them specifically any different than we do anyone else. So film and TV production is another enormous part of Vancouver's economy, and you are likely to know people in that production. I mean, I can think of about half a dozen people that live around me that have either as their primary income or sort of a supporting income. You know, they're either in the crews on TV sets, or they're actors, or they do. In fact, my own family has been in some commercials. My daughter was in a couple of TV ads, and my wife and daughter were both in a couple of TV ads as well. So everybody knows somebody, and that's kind of one of the cool things living in Vancouver. Yet another major industry in Vancouver is tourism. There's roughly 10 million people that visit Vancouver every year. They contribute about $5 billion annually to our economy. And there's over 70,000 people involved in that industry. So an enormous economic driver for Vancouver is tourism. And our big draws are basically the same reasons that you might be thinking of moving here. I mean, it's Vancouver's scenic location. It's things like Stanley Park, our natural forests and parks that are all so close to the city center. It's Whistler and Blackcomb. People come from all around the world to enjoy some of the premier skiing globally. That's just 126 kilometers outside of Vancouver. And then we also have roughly 1 million people that pass through Vancouver on cruise lines. So the cruises often start in Vancouver and they go up to Alaska. And there's roughly 1 million people that are coming through Vancouver that way as well. So once again, it's one of those industries that almost everybody knows somebody who works in a hotel or is a tour guide or a bus driver or something like that. And this is one of those major economic contributors to Vancouver. Banking and finance is yet another enormous part of our economy. So banks, insurance companies, a number of those are based in Vancouver. Canaccord, Genuity, and Vancity have their headquarters in Vancouver. ICBC, of course, the Insurance Corporation of British Columbia is based in Vancouver. And all 5 Canadian national banks have major centers in Vancouver, not their national headquarters. Those are generally in Toronto. In 2018, the Global Financial Centers Index ranked Vancouver as the 18th most competitive financial center in the world. The only Canadian city that passed it was Toronto. So in a global context, it's important financially, and certainly on a national scale, it's quite important. It ranks behind Toronto, but it has a significant presence nationally. Aviation is another big driver of our economy. So of course we have the Vancouver International Airport in Richmond, YVR. It's the busiest airport in Western Canada, and it's the second busiest airport in Canada. We are the primary gateway to Asia. So there's immense traffic that comes and goes through Vancouver. And we of course then have many regional airline offices in Vancouver. And we have daily flights, whether it's to Asia, Europe, or to the United States, Mexico, South America as well. We have an immense network, a global network. You can get anywhere from Vancouver. And aside from Vancouver's airport, we also have a secondary regional airport in Abbotsford, which is sort of offsetting some of the pressure that Vancouver has in servicing some of the more local markets. And so we have some second tier airlines, some cheaper airlines that fly out of Abbotsford, and they'll generally service sort of other parts of Western Canada and the United States. Places like going to Seattle or Las Vegas or Calgary can be a cheaper option out of Abbotsford. But the result of having this such an enormous airport and then the second tier airport is that a lot of people are involved in the aviation industry as well, whether they are pilots or working on the mechanics on the airlines or the staff that flight attendants. In fact, my own father was a flight attendant, and that's the reason that we originally came to Canada, and my father settled in Vancouver in the 60s. So it's an industry that's close, near and dear to my own heart, and there are countless people that work in the aviation industry in Vancouver, and that is one, as our tourism industry continues to grow, as people move and travel throughout the world, aviation is one of the strong points of our local economy. And then there's international trade, another enormous part of our economy, and it makes sense. I mean, Vancouver is the western terminus of the Transcontinental Highway. and our entire railway network. And then we have such a major port. In fact, Vancouver is Canada's largest and most diversified port. It handles 142 million tons of cargo annually, valued at over $200 billion. It's one of North America's major gateways to Pan-Pacific trade. And it ranks #1 in North America in total foreign exports and second on the West Coast in total cargo volume. It supports roughly 115,000 jobs in Canada and $1.4 billion in tax revenue. So there is a lot of opportunity in trade. There's people who work on the docks, of course, and there's truck drivers, and there's the warehousing of the goods that come and go through our port. There's all the train network. There's so many people involved in trade in a variety of ways. So those are the major industries in Vancouver, the areas where you're going to see opportunity. But let's get very specific on where the most job growth is happening. What sectors are those? Now, finding that data is a little bit challenging. The best I could do is find data that compared 2006 to 2016. So obviously at this point, it's 8 years later, and these trends probably have continued, and perhaps some slightly different trends. But I think the most important thing to understand is it's very clear over time, as I mentioned, that we're moving away from a resource-based economy to a more diverse, knowledge-based economy. We're moving away from lower-paying jobs generally to much more high-paying jobs. That's a trend that is very consistent through these job sectors that we're going to see. So we're going to go through these based on the percentage of jobs that they have in Vancouver's economy. So #1 is professional, scientific, and technical services. That has a total of 15.6% of jobs in Vancouver. And from 2006 to 2016, that sector saw a 23% increase in jobs. That's for legal services, so lawyers, notaries, that kind of thing. Computer system design, so IT essentially, and architectural and engineering. And so there is an enormous growth in construction in Vancouver. We're seeing an immense amount of construction, specifically around condominiums, around residential construction. We, for instance, have the Broadway plan, where we're seeing the construction of the Broadway SkyTrain that's costing billions of dollars, but around that SkyTrain hub, we're increasing density, and there's massive amounts of construction that's happening there. And obviously, people need to plan it. And so there is a lot of opportunity for people involved in construction. #2 is healthcare. That segment of the economy has 12.5% share of jobs in the city. That has seen a 20% growth in that 10-year period, 2006 to 2016. Of course, those are people who work in hospitals, so doctors, nurses, but also care aides, physiotherapists, medical offices, residential care, all of that stuff. We have an aging population, of course, and people are retiring in Vancouver, and there are care homes. There is, again, an immense amount of opportunity for people involved in healthcare in Vancouver. #3 would be accommodation and food services. That is 10.7% of the jobs in Vancouver, and that has seen a 23% growth. So again, this is tied very much to that tourism industry, people going out, going to restaurants, staying in hotels, and all the people that supports. And as we said, there's about 70,000 people working in the tourism industry in Vancouver. And that is an increasingly large part of our economy. #4 is retail. 10.5% of jobs in Vancouver are involved in retail. That grew by 27%. And of course, those are things like grocery stores, clothing stores. There is an opportunity in Vancouver if you're involved in the retail industry, if you want to open a retail store of some sort. There's a lot of people who would like to give you money. That is an increasingly large part of the jobs that you're going to find in Vancouver. Then we have finance and insurance at 7.3% of the jobs in Vancouver. That saw about 12% growth between 2006 and 2016. Of course, those would be the banks, the insurance brokers, and stockbrokers. So as mentioned, places like Genuity Capital, Van City having a headquarters here in Vancouver, and all of the national banks having regional offices in Vancouver, ICBC being based in Vancouver. All of these companies have a big presence and a growing presence in Vancouver. Educational services is #6. It's 6% of jobs in Vancouver. That grew about 18%. And that is, of course, things like universities and colleges and ESL schools. So those took a big hit, of course, in COVID, but they've come back in a really big way. And it seems like there are universities popping up all over the place. Lots of international students, of course. That's a bit of a touchy topic these days in Vancouver, but lots of people coming from all around the world to get really high quality levels of education. And then finally, information and cultural industries, that's number 7. It's 5.5%, but this one is one that saw some of the most growth, 39% over that 10-year period. And specifically, we're talking about IT and the film industry here. So those, as mentioned, in the industries that play a big role in Metro Vancouver, those are two of the biggest industries. So there's no surprise that we're seeing massive amounts of job growth and opportunity. So these are the 7 areas that are dominant in the job opportunities that you're going to find in Vancouver and where there is massive amounts of growth. So if you're moving to Vancouver, look into these 7 industries. So once again, what we've seen in recent years is this move away from a primarily resource-based economy to a much more diversified knowledge-based economy. And so there is immense opportunity to find really good paying jobs in Vancouver. Vancouver is one of Canada's fastest growing economies, and it's also seeing some of the strongest job growth in the entire country. So if you're looking at moving anywhere in Canada, you don't want to just move here because of the lifestyle. You move here for the lifestyle plus the economic opportunity. And economic opportunity really does abound if you're in the right industry. If you're in the wrong industry, it can feel different. It may not feel like there's that kind of opportunity. But if you have the skills and the knowledge that are in demand right now, Vancouver is one of those places you're going to want to be. Now, if you are thinking of moving to Vancouver, don't forget that I am a real estate agent and I can help you and your family buy a home here in Vancouver. My contact information is right there on the screen. And be sure to check out all of my videos, as I put out videos just like this one every single week. But I think you're going to want to check out one video in particular from after you've watched this video. If you're looking at jobs, you're wondering what you can afford when you move to Vancouver, check out this video, and that's going to give you a really strong indication based on your salary, what you're going to be able to afford and where you might want to move in Metro Vancouver. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on next week's video.